July 1945. At the Potsdam Conference, Winston Churchill sits as an absolute equal alongside Harry Truman and Joseph Stalin, actively drawing the borders of the post-war world. The war in Europe is over, and back in Britain, the first general election in a decade has just taken place. Across the globe, political observers, including Stalin himself, assume Churchill's status as a wartime savior guarantees him a massive, sweeping victory at the polls. But counting the votes took time. The government had to wait 3 weeks to collect and transport the postal and proxy ballots of millions of British service members still deployed overseas. When the results finally dropped, the Conservative Party suffered a landslide defeat. Churchill was aggressively voted out of power. The winner was Clement Attlee and the Labour Party. They won 393 seats to the Conservatives' 197, securing the first absolute majority for a socialist party in British history. This leaves a glaring historical question. Why did the British public overwhelmingly vote out the exact man who had just embodied their will to survive and defeat Hitler? To understand the mindset of the 1945 voter, we have to look back to the 1930s. Under consecutive conservative governments, Britain suffered through a severe economic depression, marked by mass unemployment. For the working class, this era was defined by deep poverty. Entire neighborhoods were left to navigate cramped, squalid housing and a near-total lack of basic social support. Then came the trauma of the Blitz. German bombing raids forced the British government to step in and coordinate society for the sheer purpose of national survival. The state took firm control of the economy. They introduced strict rationing to ensure food was distributed fairly, which actually led to measurable improvements in public health, all while maintaining full employment. The labor force itself shifted dramatically. Millions of women entered heavy industry and munitions factories, providing physical proof of exactly what a fully mobilized, state-directed workforce could accomplish. Throughout this period, Labour Party leaders like Clement Attlee served inside Churchill's wartime coalition, running the domestic front with high administrative competence. By 1945, the British working class had living proof that extreme state coordination could solve systemic nationwide crises. They simply refused to return to the laissez-faire economics of the 1930s. During the 1945 election campaign, the Conservative Party relied almost entirely on nostalgia and Churchill's personal popularity as a war leader, offering little in the way of new domestic policy. Churchill then made a fatal miscalculation. In a nationwide radio broadcast, he claimed that if Labour implemented their socialist policies, they would have to fall back on a Gestapo. This fear-mongering tactic deeply insulted a public that had just spent 6 years fighting actual fascism. Labour, meanwhile, ignored personality politics entirely. They campaigned on a highly popular, data-driven framework for social reform known as the Beveridge Report. The report offered a clear promise. The government would slay the 5 giant evils: want, squalor, ignorance, idleness, and disease. In their place, they proposed a comprehensive, cradle-to-the-grave system of social insurance to protect every citizen. To pay for this, the manifesto embraced Keynesian economics. By using government intervention to actively manage the economy, Labour promised to guarantee jobs for all and strictly limit the influence of private capital on the state. Given the choice between a campaign based on wartime nostalgia and a highly organized blueprint for a secure future, British voters chose the blueprint. Once in office, the new Labour government executed a rapid economic overhaul. They moved to nationalize roughly 20% of the entire British economy. As this rising graph indicates, core infrastructure was taken completely out of private hands. The state assumed ownership of the coal mines, the railways, civil aviation, and even the Bank of England. But the centerpiece of this legislative blitz arrived in 1948 with the creation of the National Health Service, spearheaded by Minister of Health Aneurin Bevan. The NHS decommodified healthcare entirely. For the first time, comprehensive medical treatment was provided free at the point of use to every citizen. The immediate impact was staggering. In its very first year of operation, the NHS treated 8.5 million dental patients and dispensed over 5 million pairs of spectacles, drastically improving the health outcomes of the working class. These reforms proved so popular that they created what historians call the post-war consensus, a brand new political baseline for the country. Looking at this timeline from 1945 to 1979, we can see that this consensus locked in the welfare state. Even when conservative governments returned to power, they accepted high public spending and state-owned industries for the next 3 decades. Winston Churchill was the fierce leader Britain required to survive the war, but to win the peace, they needed a drastically different architect.